Oh, welcome everyone. Welcome to our event, Seeing Opportunities in Devastation, Stories to Inspire. And these stories are delivered by our guru, mentor, and my friend, Ed Hatton. And, we have been talking a lot around the different components and topics within the Entrepreneurial Excellence series. Our last conversation really centered around asking the right types of sales questions. And I remember saying goodbye to Ed when he said, never mind wishing everyone to have a Merry Christmas. There's still time to get some last minute sales in as a business. And I thought that was quite key. And but I just something that it left us with was, um, if you want your needs to be met, focus on satisfying your client's needs, and therefore your needs go away. And yeah, without I'm not going to do a full recap as I sometimes do. And looking forward to the year ahead. I also wished everybody, and I was listening to this recording again today, Ed, and I wished everybody the a happy new year and the best year yet. So my question is going to be, whatever we talk about this year, how can we turn 2023 to being the best year yet for all our entrepreneur listeners? Over to you, Ed.
Thanks, Jacques. Yes, very much on my mind. How can we turn 2023 into the best year ever? And, this is the time of the year where all the gurus tell you what you should be doing and what New Year's resolutions you should be taking. Um, and I'm going to be no different. I'm going to say, let me tell you what resolutions you should be taking at this time of the year in terms of things that will improve your business, radically change your way of thinking, um, growth, expansion. And my resolution would be do not make resolutions. Uh, and the reason why I say that is that and I don't actually mean that seriously, but if you compiled all of the resolutions that were made at this time of the year and their implementation, it would look very much like last year and the year before and the year before and the year before, because everyone's doing more or less the same thing. So my resolutions would be only threefold. There would be three resolutions I would make. The first one is that in the past year, we've been talking about entrepreneurial excellence, and we covered areas like management and leadership and brand strategy and HR and customer retention and sales and marketing, extensively sales and marketing. And there's probably around about 40 or 45 podcasts stashed away on the YouTube site, which Jacques will give you the lead into at the end of this podcast. And that, if you listen to them all, would take you a little over 20 hours. And if you were honest with yourself, you probably spend a lot more than 20 hours browsing around on social media or answering stupid WhatsApps or doing other non productive things. Now, one of the things you could do is go back and scan through those. Remember, the whole idea behind these podcasts is not to teach you how to become brilliant. The whole idea is to point out how you can judge yourself and what areas you can judge yourself on how good or badly you manage against a sort of standard which I've set, a standard of excellence. And where you find yourself weak is where you should put your focus. Now, in the new year, it's not a bad idea to go and spend maybe 5 or 10 hours a week browsing back on those podcasts. Skip the ones where you're doing very well already, where you're absolutely confident. Focus on the ones where you think, probably could do a little better there. Listen intently, make notes, and try and make incremental changes. And that would bring me to the second resolution. Decide that you will make, for now, incremental changes. All you need to do is probably be 5% better in your areas of weakness, and your business will surge forward. You don't have to be a genius. You don't have to revolutionize the world. If you're just a few percent better in your areas of weakness, you can change your profitability, your turnover, your staff retention, your customer retention, and pretty well every other measure that you should be using. And do it quite easily. Not a lot of extra effort, very little extra cost, if any. And it's a really low hanging fruit that people don't make enough use of. Make incremental changes. We tend at this time of the year to say, I'm going to do this better, and I'm going to do that better, and I'm going to do that better, and I'm going to, and set extensive goals. And really, your goal should be, I'm going to incrementally increase my business. And the third resolution that I would make is to set time aside for strategy. Go back and listen to the podcasts where we talked about strategy. It was early in the series, and that's serious stuff. You really should, especially at this time, be thinking strategically. We very few entrepreneurs spend anywhere near enough time on strategy. We are, as a class of people, busy, engaged, um, enjoying ourselves usually. Uh, but we're not sitting back with a proverbial fat cigar and our feet on the desk and thinking. We are working, and we're working in our businesses, not as much as we should be on our businesses. So set aside specific times to think strategically. And if we just have a look at what's likely to happen in the coming year, where you will have to provide strategies, you can go through the sequence of saying what is probable, what is possible, what is even plausible. But specifically, what are the likelihoods? What are the probables? And we could list them right now. We could list half a dozen of them, probably a dozen of them. The first probable is that you're almost certainly going to have a lot of price increases. You're going to have an increase in fuel price. You're going to have an increase in electricity price. You're going to have an increase in all sorts of commodities that you may use in your business. You will have an increase in things like protective clothing. How are you going to cater for those increases in your business? Don't wait until it hits you. Think now. Expect that you will have load shedding. Expect that you will have a depreciating rand against international currencies. Expect that there will be political turmoil, especially as we near the elections in 2024. Expect that we will have more and more issues with the environment, because we know that the weather patterns have changed fairly dramatically. So we can expect flooding. We can expect um, droughts. Think about these things. You can listen to the futurists, and you don't have to believe them all because they don't have crystal balls or time travel machines. But some of them think these things through very, very well. And they write papers and blogs and all sorts of things on that. And you should really be looking at that and saying, how do I counter that? Let's just take load shedding. Load shedding is the bane of our lives. It's dreadful right now. And it will be dreadful for the future. Because if we keep having unplanned outages at Eskom, um, and we can't bring clean energy sources into the mix fast enough, we are not going to be able to build power stations anytime within the next 6 months or so. So it is likely we will either mortgage the future by not having load shedding, or we will have load shedding. Take your pick. Which would you prefer? So let's say that you prefer load shedding, and if it's affecting your business now, what are you going to do about it? Don't moan about it. Think about it and take a hard nosed look and say, what do I need to do? With the way things are going at the moment with the price of electricity, it's getting close to the point where it's almost worthwhile borrowing money to put in solar power. Do the numbers. Don't discard any thinking just because it doesn't look right. We know that there are new variants of COVID going around. It's entirely possible that there will be a new pandemic in 2023. Already parts of China are showing alarming um, incidents of positivity. If that happens, what are you going to do about it? What effect is that going to have on your business? Now, those are all the downsides. But then what about the upsides? What about the upsides of large competitors withdrawing from the country or failing, leaving open markets? And this is happening everywhere at the moment, where big, serious competitors stop competing or price themselves out of the market, leaving holes in the market for entrepreneurs. What about those opportunities? What about the other opportunities that would be brought about by calamities like load shedding, like pandemics, like adverse rand dollar exchange rates? There are opportunities everywhere in this country, in many countries, but this country in particular, because we have so many problems, and each problem presents an opportunity to the right entrepreneur. I just read in the past couple of days, there's an entrepreneur in Cape Town who decided to do something completely off the wall, completely different. And he has opened an ice cream shop which has over 100 flavors of ice cream. None of them conventional flavors. They have flavors of marula and other all African flavors. And he's doing a roaring trade in ice cream. Now, who would have thought? Here we've got the worst weather in summer. We've got the very rainy days and so on. Who would think you'd make a lot of money off ice cream? Well, there he's doing it. There are many other similar examples of entrepreneurs who've just done something a little different. There's something that they've thought through and recognized there's a need and then satisfied the need. There's so many opportunities using new technology, drones, AI, all of these kind of things, which you can explore. So set aside time for strategy, and if you are going to make bold moves, I wouldn't do them in January. They're going to get cluttered amongst everybody else's bold moves in January, or statements that they are making bold moves, should I say rather, because everyone will be telling the world that uh, from now on XXX, and you will become just one of those. I would rather make dramatic announcements somewhere nearer the middle of the year when everyone's feeling the pain of yet another year going by. And you can stand out from the crowd. And if you spend the time from now until, say, March or April, really picking up your strategy, thinking it through, planning it, and then you have the perfect opportunity to execute um, when you are stable in your year already and everybody else is kind of already a bit exhausted. So those are the three resolutions I would say. Listen back to these podcasts, pick on your weaknesses and change incrementally to those. Change incrementally everywhere. And then set aside time for strategy and plan your implementation of the strategy when the business news world is uncluttered, unlike in January. And then the last bit of resolution, New Year's resolution, I could say, um, is not to listen too carefully about all the New Year resolutions. Your business is going to be the same from December to January. Nothing's going to radically change. Only your attitude can change. And if your attitude changes for the best, you have to carry that through to your staff, your customers, your suppliers, and everybody else. So look at your extended value chain, um, your extended supply chain. And if you have a new attitude, you have a new determination, you have a new feeling for growth or development, then tell everyone about it. Tell the people in your circle. Don't go put it on social media. Tell the people in your circle, the people where it matters, where they can add to your value, and tell them what's in it for them. A business with progressive ideas that is going to succeed more than it has in the past is a lot better business to work for as a staff member than a business that's just hanging on by its toenails, sort of thing. It's a better business for customers to be involved in. It's a lot better business for suppliers to be involved in. So, attitude, maybe that's the fourth New Year's resolution. Have a positive attitude. Jacques, I think I've said enough about now. We're a little bit short of the time, but I think there's a lot to absorb in what we've talked about here. And maybe we can just chat about our own experiences um, of year ends and what we plan to do.
Yeah, but I mean, it contains, content that always packs a punch. Um, but when I look at what you in the outline of the resolutions, I mean, actually reviewing our podcast in this sense, and I'm going to remind everybody, if you're listening to this, then you've probably accessed it via our YouTube channel, Griffin Enterprise Development, and we've got 30 plus episodes that we have uploaded into the channel. And specifically, as it said, is to use the opportunity to do some a gap analysis in terms of, all right, so where is it that I can identify areas of weakness specifically, but being willing to spend that time, being willing to brush up and educate yourself. And so many times as an entrepreneur, it's a nice to have. Even for myself, it could be, I don't have the time for this, and it continues to be such a grudge purchase. But listen, invest. I guess is going to be my comment on that resolution. I think this for this year is never mind just spending the time and reflecting on what's happened in your business. Now you can obviously look through your books. You could sit and analyze what's happened by bringing your team together for the year, having a conversation with them. But many times, what it has presented last year is a framework of best practice things to do, and you can test yourself against that, and so the investment therefore is, don't be afraid to do the to do the research and spend the quality time doing so that the incremental changes in the areas of your weakness can then happen. And Ed is making some promises here. He's saying that if you only 5% better in areas where you're not doing so well, and it's going to have a big positive impact on your sales revenue and profitability. And why don't you prove that statement? And then, yes, Ed, I mean, strategy, forward looking, rather than just being operational, working in your business all the time. Making time for that. We have spoken about this in so many different ways last year, but it's so important just to draw away and consider, and you spoke about possible and probables, but those probables in my head is consider then the different scenarios that we do have, and to think through what it is you're going to be doing in your business and how you address those scenarios. And we know we don't want to follow the recipe for insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different results. I mean, this is where you guarantee to change something. Find inspiration in anything, right? Listen to people, but even being able to just take a walk, or become more conscious of the environment around you. Uh, does nature offer
Mm.
any sources of inspiration, and so forth and so
Almost,
forth?
almost certainly going to. Yeah. One of my
Yeah,
passions is take a walk, smell the flowers, look, really look around you. Look at the people. Look at the environment. Look at the sky.
yeah,
There's inspiration. Some of my best ideas come from while I'm just striding out along a road, doing nothing in particular, but your brain relaxes, and then some of the best ideas. Yeah, Jacques, you talked about incremental increase. Let me give you an easy, soft target approach.
yeah.
Pricing.
Uh huh.
If you improve your pricing by 5%, I'm not saying increase your pricing, I'm saying optimize your pricing by 5%, you're probably going to double your net profit. I've got several examples that show that, where just a minor increase in price without sacrificing volume can actually double net profit. Uh, and it changes nothing else. There's no cost associated other than maybe printing pricing labels. So pricing, if you optimized your pricing and you got your pricing 5% more optimized, you can do a revolutionary business here. If you just sold 5% into the areas of your customers where they could be buying from you but aren't buying from you, once again, you can revolutionize your business. So there's lots of those little incremental gains you can. But let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take some of my own medicine. I'm going to go back and listen to those 35 podcasts, because when I'm giving the podcast, I'm letting my thoughts go out talking to other people, but I'm not talking to myself. So I'm going to go and listen to myself. And I'm certainly going to look at what strategic issues I need to address during 2023 in order to make my business prosper. And I know a couple of areas already, and how I can counter issues like load shedding. So those already I've started to think through. But I'm going to try and take as much of my own medicine as possible in the coming year.
Yeah. Why not? Why not? It's the content is so rich and amazing wisdom, and it's some of the easiest things to think about, implement, and then always the challenges.
Mm,
Try something new, experiment as well. I mean, you're talking about these incremental changes. This week, especially in our theme, as we were talking about, we started this year also just generally thinking about, oh, it's a new year and everybody talks about these resolutions. So I'm very pleased that you brought up this topic today, and we also linked it in to making the small moves and changing and experiencing big changes. Where ordinarily you talk about resolutions, this particular topic centered on implementing micro
mm,
resolutions. Sometimes we look at what we ought to do, and then it seems, oh, this is way too big, this elephant is too large, and the
mm,
point is incremental. It's bite-sized chunks, and implementing the bite-sized chunks one at a time, and therefore experiencing. And this is where you could literally experience permanent change
Yeah.
because you've built so much momentum into all of this. But Ed, I think you've thrown down the challenge, and I think it's really for me. I sit and I take copious notes when you're talking, but also to review all of this and say, okay, for this year, because sometimes the same content might trigger something different this year. In context for what we need in this year,
Yeah. Yeah.
for sure. And I was just kind of looking at this last resolution that you're making is change our attitude. And I think, how that speaks to me is when you were listing the probables, like we're going to be experiencing price inflation. Load shedding is here to stay. In fact, today they pushed it to, I think it's stage 6 or schedule 6 or something. A currency that's going to be fluctuating, at least depreciating for sure. And yes, all kinds of things within the political landscape. And I was watching an interview with a professor. I forget his name now. And they were asking him about this new variant and so on. And he's like, "This is not a new variant. This is just something that has existed, and it's Omicron turned into a new, and I suppose it's going through its phases, and I think the underlying message to all of this is, if you're going to be strategic about the things that you know is going to happen, and what are you going to be doing as a business, the first thing that you ought to do, as far as your attitude is concerned, is not to panic and not to go into the state where it says, oh dear me, this country is going to the dogs, I'm looking to immigrate kind of attitude. But rather, and Ed, and just that one example where you're saying is, well, what about large companies withdrawing from the country? Now, if your attitude is negative, it will say, see, even the big boys are leaving this country, I must follow suit, rather than seeing the opportunity. And if your attitude says, well, they're leaving, but I'm staying, so they are actually providing me with the opportunity to grow my business and filling that gap or that hole that they're leaving there. And it was just interesting for me is that pretty much, and as you were talking about this last resolution, Ed, about the attitude, it is the filter that we use in how we experience our realities. The one could be, this confirms our worst case scenarios, or the same event could trigger the belief that it is going to support our best case scenarios, and it's an orientation. It is just in the way you choose to look at it. We're not saying don't be realistic. Pardon it?
No, I say I couldn't have phrased it better.
Oh. And yeah, so that's really just sure, Ed. I realize our time is up, and we filled it very nicely. But yeah, no, thank you for challenging us as entrepreneurs. And it's basic, it's simple, and once again, it's implementable as long as you choose to do so. So thank you, Ed.
Okay, sure.
And thank you for those who have listened. We had some visitors today who came in and just sampled a little bit from what we were discussing. We thank you for those also that visited us. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Melissa. And until next week, Ed, have a fantastic week. And let me know how many podcasts you have reviewed. I'm joking.
I'll keep a tally.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye now.